The power of silence, mastering Stoicism in relationships. Picture this scenario. You find yourself at an extravagant magic performance. The magician captivates the audience, effortlessly pulling rabbits from hats, making objects disappear into thin air, and seemingly reading minds as if they were open books. Each trick is executed flawlessly, with every movement appearing precise and intentional. Then, unexpectedly, right in the midst of the act, the magician halts. There's no grand finale, no bow, and no explanation. He simply walks off the stage. The audience is left in a state of shock, confusion, and restlessness. Their minds are racing with questions. What just happened? Where did he go? How does the trick conclude? This moment encapsulates how you can profoundly unsettle someone without uttering a single word. People inherently seek closure. They anticipate a fight, a resolution, or the familiar cycle of emotions, anger, pain, lengthy messages, and desperate attempts to maintain a connection. This is the game they are accustomed to playing. However, when you choose not to engage, when you vanish like smoke in the breeze or a ghost in the night, without any warning or explanation, that's when their minds begin to spiral. They start losing sleep over it. Blocking someone is expected. It provides a clear answer. They might think, "Oh, they're just upset," which can soothe their ego, making them feel they still matter to you. But silence? Silence creates a void. It poses a question that remains unanswered. Nothing torments the mind more than unresolved issues. Consider this. If a store you frequently visited suddenly shuts down without any notice, no sign, and no final sale, you would find yourself walking by repeatedly, wondering what happened and where it went. In contrast, if the store announced a closing sale with a big sign stating it would shut down in 7 days, you would accept the situation and move on. This reflects human psychology. People do not pursue what is blocked. They chase after what they cannot comprehend. They do not miss what is begging for their attention. They long for what slipped away before they even realized it was gone. The harsh reality is that most individuals do not care when they hurt you. They only start to care when they feel the pain themselves. Therefore, do not waste another moment trying to prove your worth to them. They had their opportunity, and they failed to recognize it. Now, it's time for them to feel the consequences of their actions. From this point forward, stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop trying to prove anything. Allow your absence to serve as a lesson they will never forget. Let time accomplish what words cannot, and by the time they come to understand what they have lost, you will be so far ahead that they won't even register your presence. Repeat after me. I owe no one my energy. Write it in the comments, own it, and live it. If you're ready to reclaim your power, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned, because what's coming next will ensure they never perceive you the same way again. When the curtain falls and there's no encore, you don't shake them by fighting for their attention. You don't break them by trying to prove a point. Instead, you leave them with a question so profound that it keeps them awake at night. Did I ever truly matter to them? Let that thought sink in. You might believe that blocking them will send a strong message, or that cutting them off will prompt reflection. However, here's the truth they don't want you to discover. People do not panic when they are blocked. They panic when you become an enigma. When they can no longer decipher your thoughts, when the comfort of knowing they're standing with you is stripped away without a word, that's when they truly begin to feel unsettled. Imagine a puppet master skillfully pulling the strings. Imagine controlling every aspect of a puppet's movements, making it dance at your whim. Now, envision in an instant that the strings are severed. The puppet slumps lifelessly. The puppeteer reaches out, pulls, desperately tries to make it move again, but to no avail. That's the precise moment panic sets in, not when they had control, but when they believed they did and suddenly realized they never truly had it. This is analogous to what happens when you choose silence. When you remove yourself from their reach without a confrontation, without a farewell, without a dramatic scene. They anticipate the drama, the lengthy messages, the desperate attempts to justify their actions, the tears, the quest for closure. But when you offer them nothing, when you simply vanish, that's when they begin to unravel. That's when they find themselves repeatedly checking their phone, scrolling through old conversations, staring at a screen that no longer illuminates with your name. Initially, they won't miss you. That's a harsh truth few mention at the outset. They'll relish their newfound freedom, convince themselves they made the right decision, and might even act as if your presence meant nothing. However, silence is a gradual poison. It doesn't strike them immediately, but over time, it seeps in and haunts them. Because while they were bracing for an explosion, all they were met with was emptiness, and emptiness is a slow, gnawing pain. This is where doubt begins to creep in. Right now you might be thinking, but if I don't block them, won't they think I still care? Won't they believe they hold the upper hand? Won't they just move on without a second thought? This is the deceit your mind plays on you, the lie you've internalized to keep yourself trapped. You believe that closure is something you grant them, that making them understand will liberate you. But let me ask you this, did they offer you closure? Did they sit down and explain their actions? Did they ensure you comprehended everything before they walked away? No, they departed, assuming you'd always be there, assuming they could return whenever they pleased, assuming you'd be waiting. Now, imagine flipping the script. Picture a store where everything is free, no price tags, no effort. Take what you want, leave when you wish. For a while, it's exhilarating, convenient. But then, one day, the store vanishes without warning, without explanation. Suddenly, what was once taken for granted becomes invaluable. That's what happens when you choose silence. Let's be honest, though, this won't be easy. Silence is uncomfortable. It makes you feel as though you're the one losing, as though you're the one being punished. You'll be tempted to check in, to send just one more message, to see if they've noticed. But every time you do, you relinquish the power you've just seized. Every time you break your own silence, you reaffirm to them that they still matter. This changes today because the moment they sense your absence, the moment they reach out and find nothing, that's when the regret sets in. Not when you cry, not when you post melancholic quotes, not when you attempt to make them understand the depth of their hurt. No, they only regret losing you when they realize they have no inkling of what's transpiring in your mind. They thought they knew you, thought they had you figured out, thought they could predict your every reaction. But what happens when you defy their expectations? What happens when you break the pattern, when you stop providing them with the comfort of knowing where they stand with you? It unsettles them, because people don't fear the known, they fear the unknown. When individuals sense they are losing you, it's often rooted in a deeper fear, a fear of losing their grip, their influence over you. They also harbor a fear of the unknown, a fear of uncertainty. This feeling intensifies when they are unsure of your feelings, questioning whether you truly care for them or if you ever loved them at all. This uncertainty gnaws at them, and the longer you remain silent, the more your silence gains power, becoming a formidable force. Initially, they might try to brush it off, convincing themselves that they are unaffected, that they don't care. But as time wears on, the silence begins to work against them, fueling their insecurities. They start to ponder why you haven't reached out, wondering if you've moved on, if you've replaced them. When they actively search for answers and come up empty-handed, that's when the pain sets in. By the time they finally grasp the magnitude of what they've lost, you may have already reached a point of indifference, ready to close the door they assumed would forever remain ajar. If words alone could alter their behavior, they would have already changed. Let that thought sink in for a moment. You might believe that words hold immense power, thinking that if you could just explain yourself one more time, find the perfect way to articulate your feelings, or pour your heart out completely, they would finally understand, finally wake up, and finally recognize your worth. But let me pose a question: did they truly listen before? Did they show respect for your words when they had you in their life? Did they change their ways when you expressed how much they were hurting you? Probably not. Because people don't experience regret over losing you when you're crying, begging, or explaining yourself. They regret losing you when they can no longer reach you, when they suddenly realize that your presence was never a guaranteed constant. When they go looking for you and find nothing, that's when reality strikes them like a bolt of lightning. That's when the weight of their choices begins to bear down on them with immense pressure. Imagine a radio station that's always playing softly in the background. You don't really pay attention to it, you don't even appreciate its presence. You simply assume it will always be there. But one day, you turn the dial, and instead of the familiar music, you're met with silence, static, nothing. Suddenly, you're struck by a profound sense of emptiness. That's precisely what happens when you remove yourself from someone's life. They never truly appreciate your value until your presence is replaced by silence. But right now, you might still be making it too easy for them. You're still leaving the door slightly ajar, still responding to their late-night texts, their half-hearted check-ins, their lackluster attempts to keep you on the sidelines, waiting. And then you wonder why they don't show you the respect you deserve. It's because people don't miss what they believe they can always have. They don't regret losing something they think is still within their grasp. As long as you remain readily available, they will never feel the sting of your absence. And this is where fear often creeps in. You're terrified that if you don't respond, they'll forget about you. You worry that if you don't check in, they'll simply move on. You fear that if you don't make yourself visible, they'll assume you never cared in the first place. But let me share a truth with you. If someone can forget about you merely because you stopped chasing them, they were never truly yours to begin with. That's a reality you need to embrace. Because the right people, the ones who genuinely value you, don't need constant reminders. They don't need to see you watching their every move on social media. They don't need to feel you waiting for them to acknowledge you. The ones who truly care don't require proof of your existence. And those who do, those who only come running when they sense you slipping away, they don't miss you for you. They miss the validation you provided, the comfort of knowing you were always an available option. And that's why it's time for a change, time to make a decisive move. They often feel what they never appreciated because nothing truly hits harder than realizing they no longer have access to you, something they can't call or expect a response. You now stop checking their page, waiting for their next move, and answering your weak attempts to keep you in their orbit. Every time you respond, every time you engage, every time you let them know you still care, you're giving them relief, making it easier for them to move on without ever feeling the loss. People only regret losing you when they've made sure they do. Think of this. Imagine someone walking into a store, picking up an item, carrying it around, but never buying it. They assume they'll return later, but when they do, the item's gone, no longer available. That's exactly how the human mind works. We don't crave what's always there. We crave what we can't have anymore. So, let them feel the absence, sit in silence, stare at their phone wondering why you haven't reached out. Let them feel the emptiness of a world where you no longer exist for them. When someone realizes they lost something, they think they'd always had it. But when they finally understand what they lost, you'll already be too far ahead to care. Don't slam the door shut. Just leave it open enough to haunt them. Real power isn't in blocking them, it's in letting them see what they lost, even if it's not enough for them to step back. Imagine walking past a house every day. It's old, familiar, comfortable. You've been inside before, so you never think about it. One day, something changes. The windows are tinted, the door locked, the lights on. Laughter echoes inside, but you're no longer invited in. Glimmers of warmth remain, but nothing more. You walk by, still able to see what you lost, but never enter again. That's when regret starts. Now they don't know what's happening in your world anymore. They don't know who you are with, if you're thinking about them, or if they ever truly matter to you. And that unanswered question remains, unknown and haunting. To truly unsettle someone, cease all forms of engagement with them. Stop reacting, stop showing any indication that they matter to you. This is what truly shakes them to their core. When someone blocks you, the situation is clear, they're upset, they still care, but they're choosing to distance themselves. However, when someone vanishes, not like a ghost, but as if they no longer acknowledge your existence, panic ensues. You might think, if I don't block them, won't they think I still care? Won't they believe they can return? This is the fear speaking, a deception your mind uses to keep you trapped. Blocking someone doesn't signify moving on, it merely shows you care enough to react. But you're smarter than that. You don't block them, you become unavailable. You stop giving them access, not through a dramatic exit or games, but by making them realize that while you're still in this world, they no longer have the privilege of being part of yours. Trust me, this is what truly breaks them. Now they're watching, checking, scrolling through your page, searching for clues, looking for signs that you still care. Every time they see you thriving, smiling, living without them, it eats away at them. They thought they had time, that they could return whenever they wanted. But now, they're realizing that every day you move forward is another day they fall further behind. Here's where most people go wrong. They think making someone regret losing them means posting flashy pictures, throwing hints, ensuring their ex sees how great they're doing. But real power lies in moving in silence. It's not about making them jealous. It's about making them realize they have no clue what's going on in your life anymore. Nothing haunts a person more than not knowing. Here's the truth. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to force your glow up. You just have to keep moving, keep living, keep growing. The further you go, the smaller they become. While they're sitting there, refreshing your profile, wondering if you miss them, wondering if you've moved on, wondering if you still feel something, you've already forgotten they exist. By the time they gather the courage to reach out, by the time they realize they let something priceless slip through their fingers, you'll be so far ahead you won't even hear them knocking. Take back the reins. Let them dangle. They only chase when they feel they've lost control. Let that sink in. They think they've got you all figured out, that they can predict your every move, that you'll always be there waiting, hoping, reacting. That's exactly why they don't value you. People don't respect what's always available. They don't chase what's easy. They only feel the loss when they realize they no longer have control over you. Imagine walking into a casino and finding a slot machine that pays out every single time you pull the lever. No risk, no challenge, just guaranteed rewards. At first, it's exciting, but then you stop caring. The wins mean nothing. You take them for granted because there's no mystery, no tension, no fear of losing. But the moment that machine stops working, the moment you pull the lever and get nothing, that's when frustration kicks in. That's when you start pushing the lever again, hoping for a win, but now with a sense of desperation. Imagine a button on a machine that, no matter how much you press it, doesn't seem to do anything. You might press it harder, hoping it will start working. This is similar to how people often behave in relationships. When someone is always available, always responding, and always there, the other person doesn't feel the need to put in much effort. They become complacent because they know they can rely on you whenever they want. However, things change dramatically when you start to pull back a bit. When you stop being so readily available, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, the other person starts to wonder why you're not responding, and they begin to feel a sense of uncertainty and unease. They might even start to worry that they've lost you for good. This is when they might start to chase after you, not necessarily because they've realized your value, but because they feel a loss of control. Many people fall into the trap of letting their guard down the moment the other person starts to reach out again. They see that first tentative "hey" or "how have you been," and immediately jump at the chance to reconnect, thinking that the other person has finally seen the light. But here's the thing, they're not reaching out because they regret losing you. They're reaching out because they miss the power they once had over you. They want to know if they can still influence you, if they can still come and go in your life as they please. If you respond too quickly, you hand that power right back to them. But this time, try something different. Let them feel the same uncertainty and doubt that you once felt. Don't rush to reply, and don't fall for the same old tricks. This time, you're in control. It won't be easy. There will be moments when you'll want to respond, to prove something, to show them that you don't care anymore. But true power lies in not needing to prove anything at all. The strongest move you can make is the one they least expect. So, what should you do? Stay silent. Keep living your life as if they never existed. When they come back, desperate for the comfort they once had, let them experience the same feelings of uncertainty, doubt, and regret that you once did. The moment they realize they've truly lost you, that's when the real panic sets in. By then, you won't even care. Become the mystery that keeps them awake at night. A person who can't be read is a person who can't be controlled. Right now, they think they know you. They believe they can predict your every move. They expect the late-night texts, the emotional posts, the moments of weakness where you check their profile. They expect proof that they still matter, that they still occupy space in your mind. Because they expect it, they don't fear losing you. They assume you're still there, waiting, reacting, caring. But what happens when you don't play along? What happens when you break the script, stop playing the role they've assigned to you, and simply vanish, not as a ghost, but as a mystery? That's when the panic truly sets in. This is when their thoughts start racing, replaying every moment in an attempt to make sense of the silence. They wonder, why aren't they reacting? Are they really over me? Did I even matter at all? And this unanswered question lingers in their mind like a catchy tune they can't shake off. People aren't afraid of losing what they understand. They're terrified of losing what they can't predict. Imagine watching a movie, and just before the big reveal, the screen goes black. No explanation, no ending, just silence. Your mind can't just let it go. You replay the scenes, trying to make sense of it all. You need to know how it ends. That's exactly what happens when you become unreadable. They expected a certain version of you, the one who chases, explains, seeks closure, and makes it obvious that they were important. But when you don't give them that, when you become unreadable and stop reacting the way they want, that's when they start losing their grip. Control isn't about forcing someone to stay, it's about knowing they could have you back at any moment. And right now, they still believe they could. They think if they send a message, you'll answer. If they post something, you'll see it. If they reach out just the right way, you'll come running. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you leave them on read, not just in messages, but in life? What happens when they post something meant to grab your attention, and you don't bite? When they check if you're watching and you're not? They start spiraling because suddenly, they're the ones waiting, refreshing, analyzing every little detail, trying to figure out what's going on in your head. And the more they think about you, the more they realize they don't know you anymore. And that drives people insane. Certainty is comfortable. When people know exactly where they stand with you and can predict your next move, they don't fear losing you. They assume they still have you. But when you take that certainty away, when you become a blank page, a closed book, an unsolved mystery, that's when you become unforgettable. Right now you might be thinking, but if I stop reacting, won't they just move on? Won't they forget about me? The answer is no, because the mind doesn't let go of what it doesn't understand. The things that haunt us the most are the relationships that leave us questioning, the ones that didn't end the way we expected, the ones with gaps, unfinished stories, and open-ended silence. Those are the ones we can't stop thinking about. And that's exactly why you don't explain yourself, you don't give them closure, you don't react, you don't show them anything. You let them sit in the confusion. You let them wonder. You let them feel the weight of their own choices. And here's where most people mess up. They think being unpredictable means playing games, making someone jealous, pretending to be happy, or faking a glow-up just to get a reaction. But real unpredictability, real power, doesn't come from forcing an illusion. It comes from genuinely not caring anymore, from actually moving on, from coming to such peace with yourself that their presence or absence doesn't shake you anymore. Because when you're truly unpredictable, it's not an act, it's freedom. And by the time they finally work up the courage to reach out, as time passes and you find yourself yearning for the clarity you once believed would always be there, you may realize that you have moved so far ahead that others may not even recognize the person you have evolved into. It's important to leave the door open for communication, but you don't have to walk through it. If someone didn't offer you closure, there's no obligation for you to provide it to them. Let this sink in. The urge to explain your reasons for walking away, to ensure they grasp the pain they caused, is strong. You might feel compelled to send a lengthy message to make them see your perspective. But consider this: when they walked away, ignored you, or treated you as an afterthought, did they offer you closure? No, they left you in a state of confusion, questioning your worth. Now, as you contemplate walking away, you may feel guilty for not justifying your actions, feeling like you owe them an explanation. However, the truth is that explanations don't lead to regret. Absence does. Imagine being in a movie theater, engrossed in a film for hours, anticipating the resolution, only to be met with a sudden blackout, leaving you with no answers. That's the feeling of disappearing without a word. People expect closure, a conversation, a final word, but when you choose silence and walk away, leaving them in uncertainty, that's when regret sets in. People don't panic when you explain yourself, they find comfort in understanding your pain. But when you vanish without a trace, leaving them to ponder what went wrong, that silence becomes unsettling. You may fear that without an explanation, they'll forget you, assuming you never cared. However, if someone can easily forget you because you stopped explaining yourself, they were never truly yours. Real impact isn't made through words but through the void you leave behind, the unanswered questions that linger. Resist the temptation to provide that final explanation, as true longing arises from what is not fully understood. Remember, people don't recognize your worth when you tell them, they see it when you show them. People often come to realize the depth of their loss when they reach out to you and find an empty space where you once were. They search for answers, only to discover that none exist, and in that moment, they are left to ponder their thoughts. Let them reflect. Allow them to lie awake at night, replaying every interaction, every word exchanged, and every tiny detail, as they try to pinpoint where things went awry. This process is crucial for them, as it is the true lesson they must learn. It's what lingers in their minds long after you've parted ways. The most interesting part is that by the time they finally grasp the magnitude of what they've lost, and when they come back, yearning for an explanation, you may find that you no longer care. Time often speaks volumes, louder than any words could convey. They might imagine you at home, anxiously checking your phone, wondering if they have moved on, convinced that you are still holding on to the hope that you meant something to them. They picture you waiting for any sign of remorse, any fleeting gesture that indicates you left a void in their lives. For a while, they may not feel your absence. They are too busy convincing themselves that they made the right decision, too caught up in their own distractions to notice what is missing. However, time has a way of forcing people to confront the truths they have been avoiding. Initially, it may seem like they are thriving. They might share pictures that depict a seemingly perfect, carefree life, or they could be out every night, meeting new people, filling their days with noise and activity. In this early stage, they do not experience the pang of regret because it is easy to forget something when they believe a new version of it is just around the corner. Yet time is relentless. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, and that is when the silence begins to settle in, much like a pair of flashy new shoes that start to pinch after a few wears. The initial excitement fades, and they start to realize that what truly suited them might already be lost. At first, no one wants to admit this realization. They might dismiss the creeping unease, telling themselves they are simply tired or that they need another night out, another conversation, or another series of superficial interactions to keep their minds occupied. But eventually, a small reminder, a particular song, a familiar street corner, or a dish at a restaurant, can trigger a memory of you. And that memory can be relentless. They begin to remember how you listened, how you understood them without needing them to articulate every thought. They might recall how your jokes always landed perfectly or how your presence felt like home during their darkest days. It stings because, in that moment, they come to the painful realization that they can no longer reach out to you. People often believe they can replace what they have lost, but a genuine connection cannot simply be replicated. A new face may entertain them for a time, but it will never fill the exact space you once occupied. When this truth finally dawns on them, regret follows closely behind. Initially, it manifests as a distant ache, something they can still push aside if they keep themselves busy enough. But time is patient, and that ache intensifies. They may start checking to see if you have reached out, but there is nothing. They scroll through old messages or revisit your social media, hoping for even a hint of your attention. They keep wishing to see your name pop up in their notifications or wonder if you are secretly viewing their posts. Each day that passes without any sign of you deepens the emptiness within them. This is where many falter. They count the hours and days, anticipating that regret as if it were a bill that is overdue, sitting idly by, waiting. When you wait for a message that never arrives, or when you give in and send one yourself, you inadvertently reveal your true feelings. You show that you've been just as emotionally invested as they assumed. This act weakens the power of time because it signals to them that they never really lost you. On the other hand, if you keep moving forward without checking to see if they regret their decision, time becomes your greatest ally. Each day you dedicate to your own life increases the distance between you and them. This growing distance is what eventually forces them to face the reality of your absence on their own terms. They might convince themselves they don't care, or continue as if you never existed, but genuine indifference doesn't require constant distractions. If they were truly over you, they wouldn't need to fill every moment so aggressively, and the quiet times wouldn't feel so heavy or uncomfortable. Over time, they start to realize that what you shared was something rare and meaningful, something that can't simply be replaced by a quick fix or a hollow substitute. By the time they find the courage to reach out, the person they once knew has already transformed into someone new, stronger, happier, and less willing to leave the door open for them. It can be tempting to keep tabs on them from afar, searching for signs that their life is unraveling without you. But doing so only keeps you tied to the very thing you're trying to let go of. The greatest gift you can give yourself is to release completely, so fully that whether they regret their choice tomorrow or 10 years from now, it no longer affects you. You trust that the passage of time will quietly and inevitably do its work. When they finally confront the emptiness left by your absence, you won't be there to soothe their guilt or satisfy their curiosity. Instead, you'll be somewhere else, building a life where they no longer have a role. This isn't about revenge, it's about freedom. You can't force someone to miss you, nor can you plead with them to care. All you can do is step away and allow time to reveal what truly matters. Maybe they'll come to understand that they lost something irreplaceable, or maybe they'll continue chasing after shallow imitations. Either way, you choose yourself. You keep moving forward and stop looking back. If one day they realize they made a mistake, you won't be there to soften that realization. By then, you'll be living in a place where their absence feels like a closed chapter in a book you no longer need to reread. So, let time work against them. Let every sunrise and sunset be a day you invest in your own growth and happiness, a day that makes you stronger and them more distant. They might not feel it now, but rest assured they will. Time spares no one. Eventually, the quiet moments will catch up with them, and the echo of what you once were will resonate louder in their mind than any fleeting distraction. When that day arrives, you'll already be so far ahead that their regret won't have any way to reach you. That is the quiet, profound power of letting time do the talking.